Hi, everyone. My name is Michele Exner, and I'm the Senior Advisor at Parents Defending Education. Welcome to the first episode of Parents on the Hill Defending Education. It can be difficult for parents to get a sense of who members of Congress truly are through the lens of either media coverage or C-SPAN. No offense to C-SPAN, of course. So we wanted to launch a discussion series to help families across the country meet lawmakers on Capitol Hill who are fighting the good fight for students, parents, and schools right from our nation's capital. It is a privilege to introduce Representative Brandon Williams. Congressman Williams is a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He represents New York's 22nd District, which covers Syracuse, Utica, and Rome, New York. Rep. Williams is also a military veteran who served as a nuclear submarine officer in the U.S. Navy. So thank you for your service, sir. And more importantly, Congressman Williams is a proud father of 2 children. Congressman Williams, thanks for joining us, and of course, for being our first guest.
Hey,
This is our first
Michele,
episode.
glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to launch right into our first question here. So I think all the parents watching and you and a lot of parents across the country will agree that being a parent is the most important thing that we'll do in our lives. Every decision that we make at home, at work, in our personal lives revolves around, is this helping our kids? So I thought it'd be interesting and unique for parents to get a sense of how has your experience being a parent influenced your work in Congress?
Well, as you said, we're parents of 2 adult children now. My wife and I have been married almost 32 years. We actually homeschooled our kids, so we always laughed and said we didn't know we were those kind of people, but it turns out we were, and that was very successful for us. They've gone on to very successful college careers. But in terms of running for Congress, I'm concerned about the future of our country. And that's the only reason that I left my startup software company and decided to run. In fact, this little story hopefully will encourage some parents. When my wife and I called our kids and said, hey, we're thinking about running for Congress simultaneously in 2 different locations, they both said, heck yeah, Dad. So I think our kids have really had a big impact on our decision to try to make our country better.
Awesome. I'm sure your children and I know your wife are incredibly proud of you and the work you continue to do on behalf of the American people in the Capitol. So I know you serve as a member on the House Education Committee, House Committee on Education and the Workforce. So can you tell us a little bit about what education issues are you most passionate about?
Well, the ones that have really struck a chord with me most recently is the DEI disease that's infected our schools. And the root of this is really a Marxist socialist ideology of, dialectic materialism and, things that are very antithetical to the family. Frankly, they're antithetical to faith. And I think they're more appropriate for, communist regimes, like what happened in the Cultural Revolution in China, compared to what we expect in a free and democratic society like America. And so DEI, I think, is an existential threat to the nation. Also, anti-Semitism has been a personal passion and interest for me, both before the events of October 7th and since. And so I'm a strong advocate, to fight against anti-Semitism.
Absolutely. 2 very critical topics, and I know they're incredibly important to our parents across the country. So I did want to tell you, you touched on communist China, and I know that you've mentioned the story before that you were actually in Tiananmen Square in 1989. So you've seen the brutality of the communist regime in China firsthand. I know this question will be personal to you. So do you think that parents should be concerned about foreign influence in America's schools? And if so, what is the federal government? What can they do? What are they doing to try to counter that influence?
Well, there's no better way for a foreign government, particularly one that has dramatically different ideals than we have, to have influence in a country than to take over the education system or to influence the education system. We are doing investigations into that influence. I've written a letter to Governor Hochul of New York asking about funds that are clearly coming from the Chinese Communist Party into New York State education system, and we're talking about millions of dollars. And we are asking and demanding answers as to where is that money going, what's it influencing, and why is it there in the first place. So there's a lot of action. At higher education, you have the Confucius Institute that are popping up all around our uh, schools of higher education that also are having a very strong influence over the curriculum. And as I said, these Marxist ideology that I think is frankly, poisoning our kids.
Absolutely. Thanks for your efforts there, sir. As you know, Parents Defending Education put out an extensive report over the summer showing the extent of Chinese money flowing into our K-12 schools. It was in the millions, upward of $18 million, a large portion of it in New York schools. So thank you for your leadership on that. We'll continue to push for solutions there and transparency. So what advice would you offer parents who want to get engaged, who want to become more active? What are some words of wisdom that you would share with them?
Well, you could run for Congress. I'm not sure I recommend that. I had no previous political experience whatsoever. I didn't know anybody in politics a little over 2 years ago. I didn't even know who to call to ask about how you ran for Congress. I just showed up and I said, this is what I want to do. I think you can take that same model and apply it to the school board. You don't have to wait your turn to have influence. If you are passionate about it and you can organize a group of volunteers to support you and have people that believe in you, then you should get involved. And that's at all levels. Could be at the county level. It could be at the local school board. I am not kidding. I literally knew no one, showed up and said, I'm running for Congress in one of the most competitive seats in the country. And hundreds and hundreds of people turned out and wanted to support somebody just like that. And that is the kind of authentic leadership that our nation is hungry for, our education system is hungry for. And the only thing that stands in the way is you choosing to get involved. And it's a big sacrifice. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a big sacrifice.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic answer. I'm curious to see how many parents you motivate out there to run for Congress, run for school board members. So thank you for those words. All right. So now I want to get to just a couple of questions that we know parents have specifically at this moment in time. You mentioned the anti-Semitism crisis that we're seeing across K-12 schools and also higher ed. It's appalling, right? It's saddening to see that this is happening right here in America. And so I want to get a sense from you. How has Congress engaged with Secretary Cardona on anti-Semitism in schools? And if so, do you expect anything to change?
Well, let me just start by saying I've sat down with each of the university presidents in my district and said specifically in exactly these words: if you allow anti-Semitism to persist on your campus, you are my enemy, and I will wage war on you. Not very subtle, but that's exact words that I offer. And I think what we're seeing is the confluence of DEI instruction that is leading to incidents of anti-Semitism in the K through 12 schools. Now, the federal government does not have very much oversight into that. One of the things specifically I did is introduce an amendment in Parents' Bill of Rights that required K through 12 education in the United States to include teaching about the Holocaust and about anti-Semitism. We're still waiting for the Senate to act on that. But that's the kind of efforts and influence that you can have. And when we get the right control of the Senate, frankly, and different leadership of our country, I think we can push through these kinds of requirements. Education is the answer to anti-Semitism. It's the answer to DEI indoctrination, and we've got to get the right people in there.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of parents will agree with you that when we said never forget, right, after the horrific Holocaust, we should mean, right, there should be action behind that. And so I think that the Senate, it sounds like a common sense effort that you're leading. And so we'll see how that goes. So something else that we've seen across academic institutions is the assault on freedom of speech. Right, we've seen that both at the K-12 and higher ed side. Again, K-12 Parents Defending Education has been engaged across a couple school districts that are trying to compel students to use certain language, specifically when it comes to pronouns, and that's against a student's rights of free speech. I believe you have legislation with Chairwoman Fox with the committee, so I thought it would be interesting to share some words on that information on those efforts.
We've seen this like in Loudoun County in Virginia, where parents were attacked, by the legal system for speaking up and practicing free speech. And we've seen the problem grow and frankly be exposed. And so I think we should all be encouraged by that. And particularly what I'm working on in the Education and Workforce Committee is in higher education that students have the guaranteed right of free speech. Because what really happens isn't suppression of speech, it's only suppression of certain kinds of speech, particularly ones that run afoul of the DEI bureaucracy that's been created. So I think a good first step is disassembling the DEI bureaucracy. You've seen Governor DeSantis do that down in Florida. And I think you're going to start seeing that cascade, particularly after the hearings that I was a part of against, really taking on the presidents of the Ivy League schools on anti-Semitism and, the problem of free speech on their campuses. I'm a product of those. I was a visiting student at Harvard for a year after my experience in Tiananmen Square. I have a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in business. So these schools and these environments are part of my heritage, and I'm not going to tolerate it. And so, the legislation that we're targeted is really, particularly students that run afoul of the, the Title IX issues and some of the things in our colleges and universities, and kids aren't being allowed to speak out, and that's got to stop.
Who would have thought that in 2024 it would be controversial to say, you know what, just women should play on women's sports? So hopefully this help protect some of those efforts for students. I just want to that concludes the discussion, but I want to make sure to let parents know how they can keep up with Congressman Williams, what he's doing on either his social media platform. I know on X, it's at Rep Williams, so very simple, or his official website that is brandonwilliams.house.gov. As always, be aware of what your children are being exposed to and ask questions. And if you find something or see something concerning at your school, please reach out to us at defending.org. We are here to empower parents and help expose all the concerning issues happening at schools. And also share this video with a friend and tag us at defendinged.org. And thank you, Congressman Williams, for your time and for being so generous with your time.
Michele, thank you for all that you're doing in your organization. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.